Man, the Bears just got a huge advantage that gives us the necessary tools to absolutely dominate this offseason, dominate the draft. So let's get to it. The Bears decision makers, we just spent a few days at the Senior Bowl along with college scouts and 4 position coaches. This really, as you know, it's what kicks off the pre-draft process, and we started out with a leg up. I want to go through a few position groups in this video, maybe highlight a player or two from each group. And also, the Bears, we have some areas of need. And with so much of our coaching staff there, it's very evident this last week. It made all the difference. It made the difference previous years, especially last year. We had a huge presence there as well. And we got a ton of players in the draft out of that Senior Bowl. So at this year's Senior Bowl, we had Bears tight ends coach Jim Dre. He served as the offensive line coach for the national team. And as you know, we need to shore up the offensive line. And Dre, he got an up close look at some top talent. Bears assistant defensive line coach Justin Hines. He also served as the defensive line coach for the American team at the Senior Bowl. And I think one of the most notable positions there is the wide receiver group. And I'm going to go to a story here on yahoo.com. Check it out. I always want to give credit. So as I said, we've got a great wide receiver class in this year's draft, and they're going to go quickly. I'd say in probably the first 3 rounds this year. We had some players really raise their draft stock over the last week at the Senior Bowl as well, and our coaches were there for it. Out of some of the main players, we've got like Roman Wilson out of Michigan. We've got Brendan Rice out of USC, Malachi Corley. We've got Pearsall out of Florida. We've got Leggett out of South Carolina, just a great prospect. What I'm saying is there's a ton there to choose from, but the player that sticks out most for me and that I think would be a great fit for our team is Roman Wilson. He's a wide receiver out of Michigan. Here's a guy that's in a weird situation. He was the top wideout for the Wolverines. They just had their national championship run, but his talent, that's been discounted a bit. And it's mostly due just simply because Michigan is considered a running team. So we got to slow down. We got to take a breath. We got to look at who he actually is. A very fast receiver, right? He could be a great NFL slot receiver at minimum. And the one thing he really had on display last week was his ability to get separation against defenders. That's something that you can't teach, that speed and finesse. And he would be a great fit on our team in that respect. But if you look at us last year, outside of Moore, we're just plain awful, right? How awful? We're talking next level awful. DJ, he had just shy of 1,400 yards receiving, but the rest of our team, 726 yards combined from our receiver room. Man, catch percentage, it wasn't any more impressive. Moore, he checked in with 70.6 as a catch percentage, while the rest of our room, they caught the ball at a 50.2% clip. That's so gross. So we need a full overhaul. I mean, I love MHJ. I think that's who we should take in the first round. I've covered that in other videos, but there's way more meat on the bone, and that could help our team a ton outside of that. And I think Wilson would be the perfect guy to kick the tires on. I think he's the perfect guy to draft as our second receiver off the board this year. And he showed a lot this week. He could run all the routes in the book. He has great hands, and especially that was displayed high pointing the ball in the end zone. He had a sick week. Moving on from that, offensive tackle, that's a place that we need work as well. I think there's a ton that this class has to offer outside of Alt, but we all know Fuaga. He is an absolute beast, and he might be the best choice for us, and he might be the best one in the whole draft. There are tons to pick from here. I'm not going to cover them all, but I think a really good emphasis to move forward on is the interior of the defensive line. So who are the 2 players I want to talk about? Missouri's Darius Robinson and also Tavondre Sweat. They were the main standouts, and you guys know Tavondre Sweat, he is related to our own Montez Sweat. So maybe he's a good addition. I don't know how that would work, but Robinson, he has a ton of flexibility. He can play multiple positions across the line. I mean, he played on the edge and interior for the Tigers, and he is huge. 6'5", 296. And he just looks special. As far as an eye test, his get off, his technique, his power, it just stands out. Although he's super versatile, scouts, they're generally set so far on him being an ideal three tech. And I am fully okay with having a good three tech on our roster. Let's make sure we're looking at him. And also, Sweat. He just seems different as well. I mean, brute strength and his performance over this week, over practices, I think it's going to shape him up and perhaps being the first interior lineman selected in this draft. So he might be out of reach for us. We're not going to spend our number 9 pick on a defensive tackle. So maybe the best player to talk about is Braden Fisk. He's a defensive tackle out of Florida State. Part of the reason that we can get him for cheaper is that his teammate Jared Verse, you guys all know him, he got most of the press on the team, and he might drop a bit. He might be a true value pick this year if Fisk drops. And a lot of the focus so far on our team is likely to need to cut Eddie Jackson. I mean, I think he's cooked, but also we got to decide if we're going to re-sign Justin Jones. That's a super tough decision. I mean, Jones, he showed a ton of improvement playing alongside Billings and Sweat, but I'd like to see us add another one. And Fisk, he might fit the bill. So let's get the talent to come in waves with the ability to keep our pass rushers fresh. And he spent a lot of time in the backfield during the game. He had 4 tackles and a half sack, and also added 1.5 tackles for a loss. So Fisk, he might be the real deal. He has just a killer first step. I'm going to slow down. I can't talk. And he's also a little under the radar as well. He didn't play in the Orange Bowl because he got injured. I get so excited about these players, but he could be the right pick for us. All this talent, plus he's probably attainable on day 2. So as a coaching staff, we're going to keep a close eye on him. Also, we got to talk about this group of safeties. This is definitely a position of need for us because, as I talked about, Eddie Jackson, he's probably going to be gone this year. League sources are saying teams could land starting caliber safeties as late as the 5th round. And that's music to my ears. Let's look at this deep draft class. Everybody knows about Kinchins. Everybody knows about Bullard. Everybody knows about Bishop out of Utah and Josh Proctor out of Ohio State. But the player I think is a cool one to look at is Tyke Smith, safety out of Georgia. As you know, we need help here. And Smith, he could be a day 2 option for polls, which is yet again fantastic. This guy is beyond the best safety, though. It's arguable, especially from his recent performance in the Senior Bowl, he might be the best secondary player in the whole draft. He played more in the slot and the box for the Bulldogs, but he has some experience playing deep as well. Scouts, and we love this too, they love his physicality, they love his strong tackling, and that's an absolute must for Coach Flus's unit. He might be a great fit for us. Let's look at his performance. He intercepted 4 passes last season at Georgia, but he had 3 pass breakups in the Senior Bowl, and he's shown good playmaking skills on the ball as well. Those 3 pass breakups that led to Smith earning MVP honors for the American team at the Senior Bowl. I'm sure our coach got a front row seat to that. He'd just be a great fit. Another guy to keep an eye on, that's from the Shrine game that we had a huge coaching presence at as well. You guys know that from a previous video. I want to talk about Air Force safety Trey Taylor. This is actually a blue chip talent, but he wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He was at the Shrine game. Trey Taylor, he was awarded the Jim Thorpe Award in 2023. That means he was awarded the nation's top defensive back honor. And he had 3 interceptions and 4 pass breakups while allowing, this is most important, 47.2 passer rating and coverage. And that's according to PFF. That's very nice. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention 2 other players right here. This might be low-hanging fruit. You guys know these players, but this defensive end prospect is turning heads, and he might be our guy as well in the 1st round. And that's Mr. Latu, a defensive end out of UCLA. Scouts love this. I love it too. He uses exceptional technique to shed blocks, and his play speed is off the charts. I mean, he never quits on a play, which is a prerequisite in Coach Flus's program. If you don't have a high motor, Flus has 0 use for you. In addition to that, Latu, he can kick inside to rush over the tackle, or he can play from the B gap, and the Bears just love that kind of versatility. He looks like a proto Bears player, just a prototype of what we're looking for. And also his 26.2% win rate on pass rushes, say that 10 times fast. That was number 2 in the country among players of at least 100 pass rush snaps. I mean, this guy's a perfect match with Sweat. I would love Poles to find a way to get him on our team. And at this point, I might be happy with us picking him up with our number 9 pick. Now let's talk about the star of the show. This is a guy that I've had my eye on, and this is a huge center problem. We need a new center. Jackson Powers Johnson. He has looked fantastic. And as we know, Lucas Patrick, he is not the consistent center that we hoped he'd be when we signed him in 2022. And a large part is due to numerous injuries he sustained over the past 2 seasons, but mostly the dude's just old. We need a new center. It could happen in the draft. And if we go that route, Powers Johnson, he's a man that many consider to be that best option in the class. And it's possible he's played his way into being considered one of the top 3 or 4 offensive linemen in the whole class. We've got Cody Whitehair. We've got Lucas Patrick. Each of those guys, they had difficulty in helping in the middle. They're both going to likely be set packing. Whitehair's cap hit is so high this year. So once again, center's a huge need. Powers Johnson, he came in as the best center prospect in the draft, but there isn't anything he did during the week of practice and mobile. It didn't change anything. He impressed scouts, especially during one-on-ones. He won pretty much every matchup that's possible to win. His footwork, his quickness, his ability to block laterally with our scheme, especially if we keep Fields, that is going to be vitally important. So he should be a perfect match. He has some versatility. He's played pretty much every position on the offensive line during his collegiate career, and I think he's going to be fantastic. And I would love to get him on our team. I'm just not so sure we want to spend a first-round pick on him. Centers are notoriously difficult their rookie year. They have to call the plays. They have to read all the coverages. It's really difficult for a rookie to come in and start right away. So possibly he could play somewhere else on the line while we pick up a new center in free agency, possibly get a good veteran so he can learn behind him while still playing on our line for about half a year, and then possibly then slide into center. Just throwing out a possible scenario. It's not perfect, but anyways, I would love to definitely get Johnson on our team. I think he's a great prospect, and it's a big need. Poles, he knows offensive linemen. If anybody can evaluate this talent and get the right guys on our team in that capacity, I think it's our GM. Okay, I've talked for a long time. You guys, thank you so much for your loyalty. Thank you for always coming to watch day after day after day. I really appreciate you. And let's talk about it in the comments. Let me know who you think the best prospect out of the Senior Bowl is, and let's chop it up. Thanks so much, guys. Bear down, and we'll talk soon. See ya.